All right, everybody, welcome back to the third episode of the Position Statement podcast.
Woot woot.
Yeet.
So, just a little couple things to start off with. The podcast will be on YouTube and Spotify. Take that away as much as you want it. The Position Statement podcast is on YouTube. That's the name of the channel. And then our Discord is the same thing, Position Statement podcast. And then the Instagram is Position Statement Podcast, except with no spaces and all lowercase. On the Discord, put in some stuff that you want to see us talk about or anything like that. We're just shooting off the top of our heads right now for everything until we get people to start saying some stuff that they want to hear.
Definitely comment. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So for tonight, we have our main topic and our position statement, but we're going to start off with Trevor. He's the first one of us four to practice as a certified athletic trainer. He started last week, or was it the beginning of this week?
Beginning of this week, I started my actual job, but the weekend before I was volunteering.
Got it.
Yeah.
So let's hear a little bit of how your experience has gone so far.
This guy. So right off the rip, obviously, you're nervous, very terrified because obviously I've never met the physicians who my standing orders were under volunteering up there. And, like they always drill into your head, always cover all your bases. And it really wasn't that formal once I got there. It was really chill. Like I didn't need any of that stuff. They didn't even ask for my cert or my license. They just kind of, I guess, maybe they looked me up. I don't know. Maybe they looked me up in the database, but they didn't ask for my certification number or anything. But it was cool. It was really cool. They just assumed I knew what I was doing, which obviously I do, but it's literally my first experience. And they treated me like I've been doing it for years. So that was really cool. There was the AT who runs it up there was such a nice lady. She was awesome. Made a connection up there. She said if I ever need a job in Mass, I can, just talk to her. I shadowed physicians, which was really cool. They were doing the e-care with me as well. They just got done. A lot of them got done with their residencies, and now they're doing their sports med fellowships. I think they're all primary care DOs. All of them were, but it was really cool to talk to them because doctors are so smart, and it's not even just like the medicine aspect that they're smart about. They're smart about like their ideology, the way they look at life, the way they live their lives, the way they see the world. Their perspective on everything is just great because they've talked to dying patients, and they've got their perspective from people that have died in front of them. You know what I mean? So they just have a cool way of looking at things. They're all pretty easygoing. But for my real job, getting hired and working into it, this week was pretty much like all onboarding. So like obviously when you guys get to where you're going, you're gonna have a lot of that too. But with a major health network, there's so much. It's literally insane. Getting on every email chain, like they use Teams, so getting like put on every Teams. And then using Epic. Epic is their EMR. So getting your Epic training, that's like 20 hours of training in itself, sitting in a classroom.
No way.
Yeah. So that's absolutely insane.
Yeah, Epic's not fun.
Yeah,
Epic is not fun at all.
It's pure booty cheeks. It's not fun.
Next week.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a ton of onboarding. What were you gonna say, Chris?
I had to go through the same thing with UPMC when I worked for them, just I was a patient care technician, and I had to go through Epic and how to put in literally like everything. I'm like, I'm not going to do any of this stuff.
You're not going to do any of it, but it's nice to have, I guess. I mean, if you're getting paid for the training, it's cool, but it's just, it's a lot.
Oh yeah.
It's insane. And it's just a lot. And now I get so many emails. I was telling Liz earlier, I literally had to turn off, I had to not remove Outlook from my phone, but I had to turn off my notifications for Outlook because I'll check it when I need to, because right now this is just too much. And plus I'm still in grad school and I have residency duties to do. And we just had physicals too. So now I have to enter all that physical information from all these new kids. It's insane. It's a lot of paperwork. Like when we talk about soap notes and stuff like that, that's
nothing.
That's 20% of the battle. Exactly. So it's just a lot, but it's really cool. I mean, we didn't really do much yet. I think they're just doing workouts. Nothing cool. Just kids throwing up and kids that are out of shape complaining about shin splints and stuff because they're doing conditioning, the typical stuff.
The typical.
Exactly.
You're in middle school, right?
I'm working at Freedom. I'm working at the high school right now.
Yeah, your typical high school kids.
Yeah, exactly. So other than that, it's pretty cool. I'm still trying to figure out my schedule with them too, which I feel bad for them because they're trying to make a schedule, but I have random trainings that pop up. our division manager will schedule me for a training. I'm just like, yeah, guys, like obviously nobody communicates with each other, and like I'm the one that has to tell them all this. I was like, I'm sorry, like I can't be there for that because I have a training at,
Now, are they like very like understanding when it comes to that stuff? Like they understand?
they're cool. They had to go
Okay.
through it too. If they weren't, that'd be shitty because they had to do the same thing too when they first started there because we all work for the same company. So it's like they're cool with it because they're younger. I think actually not my boss. My boss is obviously older than me, but the head AT at Freedom I think is younger than me. They're both younger. There's 2 trainers there right now. They're both younger than me. I'm pretty sure.
I met them the one time when I was at PV. I just can't remember their names.
Yeah. Yep. I don't even know if we should say their names, but
no, it's okay. I'm just saying I've met them before. I just can't remember.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. They're nice people. But that's my experience has been pretty chill recently. It's not. I wouldn't say I'm balls deep in it yet. So I mean, maybe we'll check back in a month or 2 or whatever. Once
when things
we'll all have exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We'll all have this conversation then. But yeah, right now it's really preliminary. But it's cool. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. Liz, you start next week?
I start on Monday.
That is so exciting.
On Monday, and I'll be doing everything Trevor just went through.
Yep.
I start next Sunday. I have a football camp that I'm doing, and actually,
are we playing golf soon?
Yeah, Saturday maybe. So on Saturday, I get some stuff to do and move in. Yeah. But after that afternoon, we're good.
Okay.
Chris, you start Monday.
We could talk about that after Trevor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I start Monday with Jake. We're starting our camp rotations for the rest of the summer. We are, I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through, we're working the field hockey camp all day. Except Monday, I only have the 1 shift, but the other days I have full on through. And then I retake my boards on that Friday, the 29th. So,
nice.
Coming up, unfortunately missed it by 10 points the first time, which is only like a question or 2, as we all know. But, live and learn. I know what I have to go into now and how to do better, and I plan on executing it. And then I'll fully be certified. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun experience, especially working with Jake. Again, side by side this time actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's gonna be a fun year working with ESU Sports Med.
That's gonna be sick. It's actually gonna be a lot of fun. I think it's gonna be intense.
I think it'll be more exciting for us, especially once we finally find out what teams we're gonna be getting.
Oh, okay. You guys don't know yet.
I have to find that out too.
Yeah, we don't know until August. When we
won't know until camp, basically.
Yeah, so
that's crazy.
So we have these camps, and then I think after like the week
August 5th, I think it's after our class.
After our cadaver lab is when we start with the football team doing their preseason stuff. So we'll find out that week, I believe. So like the second week of August, we actually find out what teams we have, which will be it's like nervous but exciting because we all want certain teams, but if we don't get them, but it's not going to be at the end of the world.
Yeah,
we'll definitely not. Together for the same common goal.
I think you'll be working with Paige as well, right? Isn't she gonna do club sports?
Yeah,
but we don't work side by side on it.
We don't work side by side with her. She's kind of, when you're doing club sports, you're by yourself. You have your own. She'll have her own office inside the rec.
At like on basketball courts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. But we all are working with Dugan and JJ.
Oh wow.
And Paige and Colby.
And then Paige,
not Paige.
Amber and Kobe are the 2 that aren't from ESU. So we had 4 from ESU, and then 2 from outside.
Dang, that's a lot of GA spots.
Yeah, 6. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Good for you guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
So for our main topic tonight, we're gonna do something that a lot of us are very familiar with in our own ways. So tonight, main topic, we're going to be talking about mental health for athletic trainers, not only just certified in the field athletic trainers, but we all went through schooling to be an athletic trainer, and what it's like to take all these classes and go through our clinicals. And then we can also, if we have time, touch on how we impact student athletes and their mental health, if we have time for that. But let's get into it. Liz, I know you wanted to say a couple of things. So maybe not a couple things.
Yeah, we'll bounce off. We'll bounce off some of the topics that you want to go over.
So we'll moderate. Liz will moderate this one, and then we'll get it rolling.
So the first thing I guess we can do is mental health for athletic trainers.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I did want to touch on my little list here is AT Cares. I was really interested in actually getting the training for AT Cares, and for all of you that don't know what that is, it's basically other athletic trainers there for athletic trainers that went through catastrophic events, whether it be, an injury that impacted like the entire school and like other athletes, or maybe it just impacted you in a way that maybe it was just like overwhelming. It could be, I know there's like some situations where there are like mass shootings and everything like that. So it's on the NATA website. I actually have it pulled up right now, and it said that there's a statistic on here that says 82% of like NATA members that were surveyed felt that they were not prepared to deal with the psychological impact of catastrophic injuries. And I kind of want to know what like you guys think about that.
I know, like, throughout our education, like, we're touched on it a little bit. But I feel like, like I'd have to agree with that kind of statistics. Like, although we do touch base on it, but we don't really learn how to properly adhere to it, and like how to prepare like ourselves for to only be like prepared for it for ourselves, but also to prepare to like understand what these athletes are going through. And I know, like, with me and Liz, that we've kind of have a little more of upper hand because we both have our minors in sports and exercise psychology. So we went through a little bit more of understanding education wise of how everything is done, and like different protocols, different ways we can go about helping these athletes and stuff. But just for us in general, like, I just don't feel like it's as prominent for athletic trainers. Yeah, it's kind of how I feel about it.
So I haven't had a catastrophic incident or injury happen during one of my clinical rotations. I had one that was kind of close to it. We had a guy get knocked out and stuff, but that was the extent of it, really. It wasn't the whole extent, but it wasn't as serious as we thought it was going to be in the end. But when I was working for UPMC as a patient care technician in the operating rooms, we get called to do literally anything and everything possible that we're allowed to do in our scope. And one of our main jobs is to answer codes for the surgeons while they're in surgery. And the one day I answered a code for a cardiovascular case. It was a coronary artery bypass graft. And they came in and everybody was just running around, and they told me to go up and do CPR. So I was like, well, I've never done CPR. I've done CPR. I've been CPR certified for about 9 years now, but I've never done it in real life. Going into that situation where you have to do CPR and literally hold somebody's life in your hand, it's a surreal experience. And I ended up doing it for about an hour and 15 minutes. And during that time, they were, they had to put in some catheters to the arteries and the veins to get blood pumping for him. But other than that, I had to leave the room after they sent me away. And I went and sat in the locker room for about 30 minutes to 45 minutes just to process everything that happened. And having the life of somebody else in your hands, I mean, we might not see that every day, but somebody's going to see it every day. So I think it's really important that at some point in your life, you unfortunately get to see or deal with one of these situations, because it opens your mind to a lot of other things too. And that's what runs through my head every time that I have an injury to deal with. I think of what can I do better than I did last time. So
yeah, I touch on that too. I think it's kind of crazy and mind opening too, is like that they go through that kind of situation as surgeons every single day, and all those nurses go through it every single day, and those incidents can happen. And like, we're like kind of in the same healthcare field, and like, we don't see it, as we rarely see it, if we ever see it in our career. So it's like, imagine like the toll like it does on those people that have to see that so often. Like it's just kind of crazy to me. Like, they go through this a lot more than we ever will in our lifetime. And like, so like they're more, I feel like they're like, even though they have experience with this, I feel like they are a little more prepared to deal with it. So like your instance, like, yeah, you had that one time, but like you might never have that again in your career. So it's like, you don't get the experience. So like when it does come to those situations, like it hits a lot harder than I feel than it would in like a surgery where they do this for every day.
One thing you said, like how it like could happen like once or rarely to us, but you also have to think like it could be more detrimental on an AT because you are dealing with these kids every day. You know these kids, and if it happens to somebody that like you built rapport with and like very well, it's like much harder than just like a random person. Not trying to say it's harder, but like I think you guys get what I'm saying. Like you have a relationship with this athlete and you see them go through something like that. It's somebody you know.
Yeah, so you have a connection with them.
Yeah, and another thing with dealing with catastrophic injuries or whatnot for this is the impact, as I said before, the impact that it has on the students. You as an AT, like with that team, you're gonna have to deal with their mental health during it too. So that's also a toll that you have to take. You have to take on other people's emotions, other people's behaviors to try to like make sure that they're okay and that they're dealing with it correctly. But that also weighs on you because you're trying to act as their rock. They look up to you. You're a role model to them. They come to you for when they are feeling whether it's physically or mentally down. And it's kind of they look at you as it's like your responsibility to fix it. So AT Cares is a very cool program, and that's why I wanted to really touch on that. But another thing that I feel as ATs that could bring to the table for like student athletes and stuff, a big thing that we need to do, and I touched on this in a recent, I think it was our last episode, is educating like these athletes on the signs and symptoms of mental health. I think education is the biggest prevention strategy on the face of the earth. If they know what they're dealing with, they can recognize it quicker and take on the battle even faster than it would if it were to progress into something worse that they can't really get out of. And that was something that I had in my high school. So that's why when I go into practice, I really want to implement mental health into my practice. And I actually did if you guys, of course you remember evidence-based practice, our class.
Oh,
I
it's a lovely class.
I did my paper on mental health among collegiate athletes. And I'm actually going to pull it up right here because there's a statistic in that too. That 82 out of let me find it quick. It's right here. There was a survey done amongst 827 sports medicine physicians and ATs that like deal with like high school and collegiate athletes. And it was found that 80% of them reported that they often or sometimes discuss mental health with their athletes that they treat and have a lesser comfort level discussing mental health. So I found that super crazy because in our time right now, I think we're seeing more and more athletes, whether it's high school or collegiate, killing themselves, committing suicide. That's a big talk right now. And I feel that as medical professionals dealing with these sports teams, we should be implementing mental health in our practice just as much as we implement like rehab treatments and whatnot. I think mental health is amongst the importance of those two, and I feel like people have to start looking at that, and we have to fight that stigma in order to lower these statistics. And what do you guys think about that?
So like to stop kids from, doing that terrible thing. I think that's hard because there's so much more going on in a kid's life than just, athletics,
Exactly.
Yeah.
The statistic is a really wide statistic, unfortunately, and kids can be going through so much. That was what we brought up in our debate for concussions as well. Remember their point was these kids are doing what they're doing, and it's just like, well, you can't blame that on head trauma. High school is such a trying time for athletes like that. I mean, so yeah, Liz is right. Just educate them. education and break the stigma. That's how you do it. You break the stigma. You talk about it.
Yeah, and
You
these kids,
you can't treat it as taboo. You know what I mean?
And
You
you
got to
can't,
talk about it.
yeah, and you can't be afraid to like.
Tell them it's
Obviously,
okay.
it's obviously a very touchy subject, but like you gotta be able to like break that barrier to like actually commit to doing it. Because if you don't commit to it, then what's the point? You know what I mean? Like you gotta like be on for the long haul to do it. Because like it's especially for kids like even through high school, like it's their life is changing so fast in those times. So like so much stuff's going on in their life that they don't think that's really gonna affect them too much. And they don't think about it, but it does happen way more than it should, and it's sad to see it.
yeah, and I was gonna go off of what Trevor said with so much happening in their life, stressors and stuff, and this can be due to parents, class, social, like being in like the trying to get like friends. Maybe they're new at college and they're trying to have a social life. Maybe they're in high school trying to get that scholarship and they feel the pressure of like having to like get more playing time, and maybe their coach plays kids that they favorite and whatnot, and um there's other things like their teammates like just maybe not talking to them or including them in practice, and it could be like a lot. And obviously bullying is also a thing, so that can be a stressor as well. And one of the biggest things, and I wanted to touch on this, is home life. I think home life is the biggest key to an athlete's mental health, because if you don't have parent support, the right nurturing, and all that, then you're not going to succeed in athletics. And that can also bring them down because of maybe they're getting bad grades in school because of their social life. And maybe they can't play because of a certain GPA and keep a scholarship if they're in college. I know there was one incident at my one clinical site, and it was a boy soccer player, and he was always very happy go lucky, came in always laughing, goofing off, and he started becoming very quiet and not really talking to anybody when he came in. And he was one of my athletes, and I noticed his behavior, which is something I think we really have to do as athletic trainers, is notice behavior. Behavioral changes is a big like key thing to look for when it comes to mental health. And he just was quiet. So I asked him what was going on, and lo and behold, his father got out of jail, kicked him out, and he was living with a friend, and their parents really didn't feed him. And he started cramping up a lot, and then because of that he lost playing time and he was getting injured. He started getting shin splints and cramps all the time, and it had to be an administrative issue. We had to take it to the counselors and the principal to do that. And that's why I think another thing is we as athletic trainers have to work alongside school nurses, school counselors, if you're in a high school, the principal, whatever it is, coaches. You have to be able to talk about this, and I think training should be done for those individuals for mental illness so they know how to deal with it. Because if the athlete isn't comfortable going to any of these people, they're never going to talk about it. It's going to be bottled up. And that's how these things happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that goes back to the education standpoint. It's not just, showing the signs and symptoms to the student athletes. It's also
To everyone.
explaining the signs and symptoms to the parents, to the coaches, to other players, to notice that their teammate is, not acting normally. And again, that's one of the biggest points that we can talk about with mental health is noticing the signs and symptoms, but also anything really for mental health can be a sign or symptom. It's all personal to everybody. One thing can be one way with somebody, and and another person it can be completely different. People act different ways when they have mental health disorders, and it's really just subjective to who you are and how you take either that stress or anxiety or depression. It's all tailored to you, and if you notice there's something wrong about yourself, and this goes back to the stigma point of it, there are people who you can talk to, and especially with athletic trainers now that it's become a big part of our education, um, student athletes are coming to athletic trainers a whole lot more now than they used to. And that says something about who we are as athletic trainers. And it just makes a comfortable area. Everybody likes to think of the training room as, that hangout spot, but it's also a pretty, I don't want to say, I don't know the right word for it, but like a sacred area, basically.
A safe zone.
Yeah, it's a safe zone. So it's just one of those spots where you can literally say anything that you want to, as long as it's something that's, helpful for us and or for yourself. And that's basically it.
Yeah, and I also feel that because I know when I start on Monday, I talk to my boss, and I'm actually gonna be the person in charge of creating a mental health and suicide emergency action plan. And a lot of these high schools and like even colleges, some colleges don't even have an EAP for mental health crises, and I think that's terrible. Like that needs to be implemented to show that that's an important thing to look at and look for. Um, I know that in the age that we're going to be dealing with, whether it's high school or college, a lot of it is also hormonal because we are growing. We are, you know, in that stage of like development where our hormones are changing. And I feel that um, we need to just like be a little more sensitive to people's emotions. And obviously social media has a big impact on kids these days. Like some of these like ATs that are a little older didn't have the stressor of social media, and I think that plays a big part in kids mental health these days, and that's why it's going up. Like the statistics are going up because they're just looking at social media and letting that influence their mind, and like how they have to be, how they have to act, how they have to dress, what they have to look like. That all plays a part in everybody's mind every day in this age group.
Isn't that fucking sad how like much of a factor social media is in kids'
It's
lives
crazy.
nowadays? It's so sad. It's literally meaningless. It's insane to me. It's literally useless. And like if they could just, I wish kids could see that none of this matters. And like it's just beyond crazy to me that
And like
it's that big of a deal to kids.
and like such a big part of it now too is just like it's not real.
It's not
None of it's real.
so
It's
much
just
editing.
so much editing. Like all these people think like, oh, like this, it's like to where like this, it's comes to looks or like everything like that. Like, oh my god, like this person looks like this. I'm like, yeah, but it's not
Yeah,
like
but they
all
don't.
truthful.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah, but they
don't.
don't look like that.
And like
You
I have to
know?
have a friend group like this. We have to go and do these things. I have to have a relationship with my boyfriend like this. Like, and if it's not to that social media standard, it's
Yep.
wrong
You have to
or
hold streaks. If you miss a streak, you're like she's bitching at you or he's bitching at you. Like that's just nah, it's not for me, man.
No, it's not.
I'm also much older, but yeah, it's not
Yeah.
for me, man.
Everybody I have on social media is either family or really close
I
friends.
think back to like what you guys were talking about with like being in those situations where, those catastrophic situations, life and death situations, treating people like that, dealing with it and coming home and living your life. One of the biggest things, I have a friend in IR. So he does interventional radiology. He's an interventional radiology technologist. So he basically assists in IR procedures. So IR, basically most of the procedures they do are strokes and aneurysms. So they go in through, a lot of times they'll go into the femoral artery, they'll slice it open. They'll use a fluoroscopy, which is like kind of like a live action X-ray. So I'm sure we all know what that is. So,
Yes.
for the listeners, a fluoroscopy is like a live action X-ray, or yeah, an X-ray, not an MRI. So it's basically like in real time. It's not just a picture; it's a movie. It's basically a camera that's an X-ray. So they go into the veins and they go all the way up to your brain, or they go into the arteries all the way up to your brain, break it up. So obviously he's seen, if most of the procedures he does are strokes are obviously life and death situations. So a lot of the people he sees die. And the biggest thing that he told me and how he deals with it, because obviously we have conversations like that, we'll sit down, have a few beers, and we get to talking about stuff like that. So his biggest thing was a sense of detachment. And I'm having the same conversation that we're having with each other. So like we build rapport with our athletes. That's not an option for us. Detachment isn't an option. Like we see these kids every single day. We rehab them and get them back. Like detachment is just not really, it's just not an option for us. And that's where it's like, it's so hard and why our profession is so dynamic, like Liz said, it's not random patients. It's not our first time seeing this person, and it's not good. And it's sometimes it's their first time seeing them, it's their last because they die. For us, we see these kids every single day. So detachment is not an option. So it's like you kind of are on your own to figure out how you're supposed to deal with this, because there really is no true way, because that strategy sure shit doesn't work. It's just not an option for us. Our kids they're our kids, man. Those are our athletes. Those are our patients. We see them every single day. So it was just funny because he's like, yeah, it works for me, man. I leave it at the door. You just have to be detached. It's like, that's not an option for me, but glad it works for you.
One of my favorite things about the high school setting is building the rapport with the athletes and having that relationship with the athletes. So that
Yeah, it's great.
That would not be an option.
No, absolutely not. No. Yeah. Detachment isn't. And I talked with physicians about this as well, too. They say the same thing, detachment. Like when you're in there looking at the body, you just look at it as if you're working on a car, because that's what keeps you.
That disgusts me. Oh, no.
But I mean, when you think about it, you can't have feelings when you're doing a job like that. You can't, because there is no emotion. You need to be robotic. You need to be in the zone. There cannot be any emotion with this. So that's often why surgeons aren't allowed to work on their own kin. They're not allowed to work on their family. It's like obviously a big law. You can't do it. So that's for them. I think that's how they have to be. But for us, it's such a dynamic profession. It doesn't work that way.
Because I feel like if you did have emotions towards it, like you wouldn't last as long in your profession, because every time somebody would come in and you lose them, like it just adds up, and like over time, like obviously, like don't really like your friend, like goes in with no emotion, but deep down it still does affect them in some way.
Oh,
but
I'm sure it does.
It's just like you got to get to that point where like, yeah, it affects me, but I know that's just part of the job.
Exactly.
And that's how it's gonna be.
Yeah, that's definitely where he's at.
Yeah. Because like for us, like that's just not,
because you can't survive in an environment like that. You physically can't do your job like that. Like imagine a combat medic. Like you can't do your job unless you're somewhat detached. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Another thing is regarding the education. I also feel like we should be posting like resources. We should give out like to the coaches or something, like resources,
posters, QR codes, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. Because kids always have the phone. A QR code is perfect.
Exactly, because if they're not comfortable coming to a human being that they know, whether it's like you or a counselor or whatever, at least they know that something's there that they can do and like take upon to help themselves.
You know what? Here's an idea. Maybe an anonymous tip QR code. Like even if it's not for that person speaking up for themselves, maybe they know somebody who's getting domestically violenced. Maybe their shitty boyfriend is beating them up. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Stuff that you can report that stuff, but it's like it's in house. You know what I mean? It's gonna get handled in house.
Yeah.
So stuff like that.
There's so many different hotlines and websites and even apps that these kids can either download, call, whatever it is, and just help in their own time and look into it on their own time if they're not comfortable speaking out about it, because you can't force somebody to speak out about it, because that's
only going to make them bottle them up more.
Yeah, because it's going to put them in a traumatic situation where they didn't want to say anything, and it's going to either make them anxious and they're just not going to want to do it again because
it's going to backfire
to do that. So I think that's a very, very good idea to like even just have that as an option, just anything.
Yeah, because like I feel like like when they're in that kind of mindset in place, like they already feel helpless, so they feel like they don't want to let anybody know and let them like oh, this person's weak, or like because that's how like society, like we said earlier, like how society say like if you're like different than other people, you're just perceived to be weird, and like no one wants to talk to you. So like no one, that's like great example. Like do the QR code, so like because most of the time like they don't want to tell anybody, they just want to deal with it on their own. Like you can deal with it on your own, but like it comes to the point where it's too much. Like you're gonna need help, and like I just feel like kids nowadays are just too scared to reach out and get help because they feel like the way society is, it just turns them off. Like, oh, you don't need help. It's just your imagination or something like that. Like you're fine. You can figure it out.
I know all of us here have dealt with one way or another a mental health issue. And me being one, I could say that I bottled mine up a lot. And the reason why I want to help kids so much is because I want them to not do what I did. I want them to be able, like, be comfortable to speak on it or get the help they need, because I was stigmatized. I didn't know, like, I didn't tell my parents for a year and a half that I was dealing with anything. I just went to my room and dealt with it by myself. I would just cry in my car. I would go to school every day with a smile on my face, was fine. And then as soon as I was alone, I dealt with it by myself. And that is what caused me to have like intrusive thoughts, and what people don't understand about depression and why they think, oh, it's just somebody that's sad, like they'll get over it. Like, no, because that's what I thought. I was like, oh, that person has depression, they're fine, they just need to, like, do something fun to get over it. No, because with depression, it is a chemical reaction in your brain. You cannot help that. I chose against medication because I wanted to deal with it on my own and try to figure myself out without being dependent on something. Medication is a great route if you choose to do it that way. If you truly need that, that's a great route. But I tried to do it by myself, and I finally spoke up about it one day when I just, like, I cracked. Like, I couldn't deal with it anymore. And I went to counseling at ESU every week. I went to a group therapy session, and I didn't even want to do group therapy. I wanted to a one-on-one, but that wasn't available, and I was like, okay. So I did group, and I got an ESA. ESAs are awesome. I recommend that to anybody because having something to take care of and something that's so innocent will take your mind off the bad in the world and the bad in your mind.
Tell the listeners what an ESA is.
ESA is an emotional support animal. Mine is literally over here. Her name is Ari. She's a cat. I know everybody in this room has an animal, and I'm sure that everyone could attest that even just being in a presence of an animal just makes you happier for
It's
even
so great.
a moment.
It's
If it's
so
just a
great.
moment.
Yeah.
So I would definitely try, like, I recommend that so highly, but also just activities that, like, you can, like, just not be sitting in your room. Like, any free time that you have, you're going to be thinking about how you feel. And there's so many different things that you can do, like the gym. It is proven to help your self-esteem and your mood and productivity. So I feel going, like, working out, even if, like, you're afraid to do it in your own room, go on a walk, do yoga, do something that will really, really help you. And that's another thing I recommend to a lot of people. Um, and that's one of the things that helped me too. But a big thing that helped me was also music. I don't know if you guys want to touch on, like, anything that you went through or how something helped you.
I mean, definitely, like, yeah, I'll touch base on what you said, like going to the gym. Like, that's, I mean, I've worked out for, I don't know, like 8 years now, since like high school, like freshman, sophomore year of high school. Like, I did for my sport, but like, as I grew older and went through what I went through, like, it really did help. It was like my safe zone. Like, I could go do what I had to do to better myself physically, but also, be getting out of my own head and like just listen to music and just work on yourself. Like, subconsciously, it just helps so much.
I know for me, I'm one of those people that bottles a lot of things up, but the biggest thing for me is it's going to sound like a big nerd move, but finding something that interests you. And for me, healthcare interests me, and going on and learning just random things helps me a lot. Finding something that I've never dealt with before, and just going on a deep dive into whatever I'm looking at just to get my mind off of whatever I'm thinking about. That's my way of handling things.
It's really good. Find something you're passionate about and go for it. That'll really, really help.
But we got less than a minute in our Zoom. Trev, you want to hit real quick?
I don't think we got time.
Yeah.
Like less than 30 seconds.
All right. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Take a little breather here, and we'll come back and maybe just touch base on it.
Yep. All right. Sounds good.
Are we back?
Yeah.
We are back. All right. So I'll just like touch base on, like, I guess my mental health struggles and just what I went through. So, I mean, I had anxiety for a long time. Obviously, didn't get diagnosed with anything till I was very much an adult. Once I finally had like episodes of panic attacks and finally, went to the doctor and got diagnosed and got help. So I got diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, and depression as well. So I tried the cognitive behavioral therapy at first, and nothing was happening. Nothing was working for me because I did have a panic attack disorder as well. So my anxiety is pretty bad. So I have like not just anxiety attacks, but full blown panic attacks. The one where, like, you feel like you're having a heart attack. Those real bad ones.
Yeah,
they're so bad. Oh,
yeah,
my
I had
God,
one not too long ago.
Oh, they're the worst. but it's funny because you become more familiar with them, and it's funny that you have like medical training and you're like, okay, like I know this isn't a heart attack, I know this isn't a stroke, like why am I feeling this way, you know what I mean? It's just, so that was one cool thing that kind of helps you calm down a little bit. But actually I ended up going the medication route. So I pair cognitive behavioral therapy with medication, and you know, I've been very, very, very good and very fortunate ever since that I've had a successful treatment with mental health. So I
Awesome.
mean, I'm a big advocate for that as well, you know. But it wasn't my first go-to. I wasn't like, I just put me on some pills, doc. No, I want to try.
Yeah.
I exhausted every single option until I got there. So, and it ended up being the right treatment for me. Like Liz said earlier, it works for some people, it doesn't work for other people, and I was fortunate enough to have it work for me. So
Yeah, that's amazing. Like as you said, like when I got diagnosed, it was depression, anxiety, OCD,
mhm.
and I had panic attacks too, where I felt like my heart was literally going out of my
Oh
chest. I would like
God, they
lose my breath.
suck.
I
Oh, they
literally was
suck.
losing my breath, and I'm like, I can't breathe. And
Yep.
because I would get scared about not breathing, I would then start hyperventilating. So once I got Ari, which was basically, I guess you could say my treatment was getting an ESA and going to group therapy, she literally can feel my anxiety before I feel it. Like she comes right over to me and sits on me, and I like that's what kind of prevents them from happening sometimes. So that has worked for me.
Yeah,
Um,
it's pretty fucking amazing when you think about it.
yeah,
Yeah, and like I'll touch base a little bit on mine. Like, like I was, anxiety and some depression. It wasn't, I've gone through a lot in my life. A lot of family issues that I had to deal with. At first, tried to deal with it on my own. I kept it to myself for such a long time. I just would always say like I'm fine. That would be my go-to. But it got to a point to where like I wasn't fine. Like I was going through a lot, and I did go the medication route at first. It was working for a little bit, and then I started having some really bad side effects. I would have, major mood swings and like get angry at the littlest thing. So I just personally stopped taking it, and then that's where like I really honed in on the gym kind of aspect, because that was like my medicine I used. Because like if I'm having a bad day or something like that, and like I go into the gym, just like it boosts my energy and just mood entirely. And like obviously like I'll go nerdy too. Like a really big thing I go to is just video games. Like I feel like video games get a bad rep for what they are, but like overall like it's been proven like to some extent that like it does help cognitively like advance your mind in the way certain games are. But there's like you could do different stuff with that too. But like so I stopped taking the medication and focused on more physical activity and just doing stuff on my own that like made me comfortable. Not to say like I still have my issues. I still have situations where I feel like medication would have helped, but in the long run I feel like I didn't want to be dependent on something. Like I didn't want to be dependent on the medicine and have to worry about it all the time. Like I wanted to mentally prepare myself for not having to take it. So it's not like Trevor said like it works for him, that's great. Like it's gotten him to a good point in his life, and it just didn't work out as planned for me. And I was fortunate enough, I talked to Liz too, and like I got a cat, and then I have ESA as well, so I bring her to school with me. Jake knows all about that, living with me, having her.
Maybe-
It's a nice thing to have. Like like at the end of the day, like you just have like this cute like animal that conditionally loves you and stuff like that. And like she's been is so attached to me now too. Like she just follows me everywhere in the house. Like if I go downstairs and everything, she's right there. But it's just a nice little thing to have. Like it might not work for everybody. It might not be financially capable for some people, but I know on campus too, like they have like they have I think twice a week they have the therapy dogs come in. Like you could go for free and just go pet them and see them for a little bit. And like I feel like that's a really good thing too. It's like most families and most kids, they have pets at home. And like, you're gonna miss your pet. It's like they're part of the family. So like being able to go like see like a therapy dog that's excited to see you, obviously, is a really good thing and good feature that I feel like our university has. I'm sure other places have as well.
yeah. Before we move on to the next topic, do you guys just want to say one little quote thing that I saw from my evidence-based practice thing? And this is also in my paper, but Trevor said this about like experiences and stuff like that. But it says scientists state that the brain learns from what it encounters, and I know a lot of people said in this discussion that it's like things that like we went through earlier that kind of brought on these things. Well, it says our experiences and how we are treated in our environment and how we are nurtured determine who we become and how our brain is wired. So I think that's another thing I wanted to just say about like home life and like the things that kids experience or social media or whatever. The things that we see and the things that like we experience and how we are nurtured will be the outcome of how we process things mentally and how we behave. So it's very important that positivity is just a big thing coming from us and in our profession. I think if we are a positive outlet for these kids, then it could bring a little light to their day. It could make them feel that they are, you know, safe and that they can be comfortable to come to us with their issues. And that's just something that I think that we should be doing on a daily basis.
Yeah, I could contest that. Like just having a different family life growing up, not having your typical family around is it has made me into a different person I feel like that I am today. But yeah, like definitely going home, like obviously like not all of our athletes don't have the perfect home life, and like being able to like understand where they're coming from and like is a really good point to make and have, so you could have those talks with those kids and be able to give them insight and be able to cheer them up a little bit and like say like that things would get better as life goes on and stuff.
Yeah, and if they don't have the right parental guidance, just be an authority figure in their life.
Yeah, that's also, yeah, because they see us every day, and like I've seen it like throughout my clinical rotations as a undergrad, like seeing how like these high school kids interact with the ATs and like how close they get. Like they're like, they understand the professional boundaries, but it's like they have like an older brother or sister to go to after school and like just talk to and like mess around with, and like it's just a really cool thing. Like that's what I hope to have when I get out there. I'm sure I will, but I think it's a really cool, turnaround experience to have.
All right, Jake.
So the last thing that I wanted to talk about for our main topic, so when I was in undergrad last year, I ended up doing a undergraduate thesis on athletic training students and how the clinical rotations and academic stressors affect our mental health. And the results part of I created a survey, and the results for my thesis were actually really, really interesting to see how everybody else felt about the educational program, not only at the school that we were at, but I mean, that's all I surveyed. But I'm pretty sure that's how a lot of other people feel across the country going through these types of programs, because they're so, what's the word for it?
Rigorous.
Rigorous. Yep. So in the survey that I did, there were about 46 students that answered their survey and 31. So that's a 70.5% of the athletic training students that I surveyed had some type of stress or anxiety during their clinical semesters. And the survey didn't include the freshmen that didn't have a clinical semester, so they couldn't experience it. So that number is probably higher than what it actually is. These clinicals, along with taking, your 15, 18 credits, it can damage your mental health. And I'm pretty sure a lot of us felt that way. I know me not even having a clinical and having to write this paper within the time frame that I did, it was really stressful. And I mean, that's just college in itself, but the clinicals that we go through as athletic training students are really rigorous. They're sanctioned to the point where they have so many hours that we're supposed to get, and then they have their limit. But sometimes the athletic trainers at the school that you're doing your internship with, they kind of say, hey, you can come more, or you can do a little bit more, when you're actually not technically supposed to, but you still feel obligated because you're a student and you want to learn more. So I went and went over my hour limits because I wanted to learn more about, athletic training and everything. But I just thought bringing up the paper that I did, because I spent 4 months writing it, and it caused some pretty stressful situations. But if anybody wants to take a look at it, just throw it on Discord, and I could put it in there. But yeah, so anybody have anything else for our mental health discussion?
I'm good.
We're all good. All right.
No.
So we're gonna move on to our game next. So today we're gonna be playing a little different game than we played the past 2 episodes. So people might know this game, but we're gonna keep it kind of PG-13. So we're gonna do a ranking system: tolerate, marry, kill. So for today's game, we're doing tolerate, marry, kill, and these are the things that we keep on us that has all of our equipment in it. So a couple of the items that we're going to do are the fanny pack, the sling, and the backpack. So the fanny pack obviously goes around your waist. It's a little bag that you keep around your waist like a belt. The sling is an over shoulder sling. It's kind of small. You can put whatever things you need in it. And then the backpack is like your normal school backpack, but with some extra pockets and stuff, specifically for our medical stuff. So whoever wants to take away their list and explanation, take it.
I'll do it.
All right.
Okay, so I would tolerate fanny pack. Okay, I know that's going to be a little controversial because everybody hates fanny packs, but when you're on the field, that is like a very, very good tool to have because I feel I'm going to already skip to kill. I'm killing the backpack. Okay, sling is Mary. The reason why Jake is looking at me like I'm crazy, reason why I say kill backpack is because we're going to have a kit on the field, like a normal like size kit that's going to have everything in it. So why would I need to be wearing a backpack?
You don't need a big kit on your body. No.
You don't need a backpack on my back. I'm not breaking my back standing there the entire game or practice. I'm not doing that. I have a kit that's 10 feet away. If there's something going on the field, a fanny pack or a sling is going to do me justice. It's going to do the job. I'm going to have whatever I need emergency wise in it. If I need something that's a little bigger that's not fitting in my fanny pack for an emergency situation, which would probably be like, an AED or something like that, you're not going to fit that in a backpack either. You're not putting that in your backpack. So everything that's on like your gator or whatever you're using, you're going to have a kit. Or if the AT room is close enough, you have that there as well. But yes, I would say tolerate the fanny pack, marry the sling, kill the backpack. That is my order.
Love it. It's very that's actually a reasonable choice.
Yeah.
There's like reasonable reasons behind that.
And another thing I'm just gonna add, if you have a backpack and you're standing on the side of the field and something like maybe you need like for football, I know everybody here covered football. You need to be quick. So rummaging through a backpack and trying to find what you're trying to find in all the midst of things you are shoving into that backpack, I'm sorry, you're not going to find it in time.
If you're using a backpack, you better train with that backpack and know where everything is.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you might as well train like a cop does with their gun. Like, you better know where it is.
With a fanny pack or sling, you open it, it's right there. It's supposed to be small and it's supposed to have just the thing that you need in it. You're going to know exactly where it is. It's going to be easily accessible and it's going to be big, bing, bada, boom. You're done. That's what you need.
Yep. I agree. I think I'll go next, actually. I think so. Right now, the only reason, like, I have a sling now, but I am definitely transitioning because I remember my first time at Kutztown's camp. I was wearing my bag every day, and we had like 14-hour days. It was insane. Like, Jake can attest to camp. It's absolutely nuts. And I was wearing a shoulder sling bag, and that shit sucked. Like, that was a lot. Like, and like, I think I was using the sling because I didn't like realize that we were going to have a kit right there all the time. It was like before, like I've been to more clinicals before that, but it just didn't like register in my brain. So I'm definitely switching to a fanny pack coming here soon because my shoulder gets rocked by a sling. So I'm going to say tolerate sling, marry fanny, and then absolutely kill the backpack. That's just that. If anyone else is like, if anybody says backpack here, I'm leaving. Like, I'm leaving and I'm taking the podcast with me. That's it.
Well,
the backpack is just it just seems like a bit much because, like Liz said, you have a kit right there. You have an all-encompassing kit, and you don't need it.
Love it.
That's what you think.
Ooh, Ooh.
Chris, you go up because I'm gonna have a fun day today.
This is gonna be a hot take. I already had my hot take. This is gonna be
Jake's hot take.
All right.
Human.
So this is hard. So, all right. I'm tolerating the backpack.
Oh.
I'm tolerating it because, you know, I understand, but I do have to hate one way more than the others. So I agree that the backpack is kind of unnecessary. But, you know, I understand that. But, you know, it could come in handy for certain situations. But when it comes to marry or kill, I'm going to have to kill the sling. I just feel like it. Okay, this is where it kind of depends for me, because I've seen some sling bags that I've actually liked and think they're good.
I know exactly which one you're talking about that you hate, because I have the same one.
It's a small one.
It's
so
the Mueller sling bag.
Yes, it is so small. You can fit
Oh,
two
the
rolls.
The ones that they gave us for school, the ones you could buy through the school.
Yes.
Yeah.
The little sling ones, but the one I've really liked, Jamie's sling bag that he has at school for one of our ATs at ESU. He bought it. He told me, I can't remember the company. I might have to buy one myself.
Is it Maxpedition?
I can't. I couldn't tell you.
The people at Muhlenberg. Here, I'll see if I can link it.
I can't. But anyways, if it's that sling bag, okay, I'm gonna have to change it around. But I would have to marry the fanny pack. Ever since I saw Jake's, I got one too myself. It's much bigger than that stupid little sling, and it is versatile. It is a little annoying because running, it's kind of weird to put it either on your back or your front because it just bounces up and down when you're sprinting out to the field. So I've kind of developed it into a sling. So it's kind of versatile for me. You can use it as a normal fanny pack or extend it all the way out and use it as a sling. I think that the size of the fanny pack is the perfect size for you to have, especially because you have your kit on the sideline.
So
take away, Jake, your little hot take.
So yeah, mine's going to be a little bit different from everybody's. I'll start off with, a good one. I'm going to tolerate the fanny pack. Fanny packs are really nice. They have a good amount of room. They're very comfortable and stuff to carry. The only reason why I tolerate it is because I had to carry 2 fanny packs at once for one of my clinical rotations. I had all of the gear that I needed for first aid, and then I had another fanny pack. So I had one on the front, and then I had one on the back to carry all of our, football, helmet equipment removal tools and equipment removal tools. So I had to carry 2 of those. So that's why I tolerate it. So now for the controversial part, I'm gonna kill the sling ridiculously hard.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
So
you're marrying the backpack.
Yeah. So for the sling, I have a good reason for the backpack.
All right. Let's hear him out. Let's hear him out here.
For the sling, it's just one. It's too small for me. I don't know if I've just not used the right sling or anything like that, but I don't get the compartment space in a sling that I would with anything else. And that's something that I'm really big at in my athletic training kit is my compartment space and how I organize things. So that takes me into marrying the backpack. One reason why I marry the backpack, obviously, like I said before, the compartment space, everything is organized, nice and neat. I understand that you have, another kit on the sideline for all your big stuff. But I'm one of those people that if I don't have something in my kit, I'm going to get so frustrated and be so annoyed the rest of the practice or the game. And it's just going to hurt me. So with the backpack, I need a kit that is ginormous. And the one I have now, it's the same one that Chris bought, the Mueller Medi kit.
Yes, it is massive.
It is gigantic. And
it has backpack straps.
Yeah. So it can either be, a sling. It's a little big to be a sling, but it's a backpack or a carrying case or whatever, but it is so big. I can fit so much stuff in it and I wouldn't have to worry about anything. That's one of my big things. I learned that in another clinical rotation. I forgot a few things on some away trips down to some really far places away, like Richmond, Virginia and stuff. So I will never forget that time. And that's when I figured I need to pack everything nice and I need to make sure that it's there. So I'm going to be wearing the backpack. That's why. I have a good reason for it, but
yeah, I'm not hating that.
Yes.
I just need the space. So
yes,
if you saw my sling or my fanny pack, it is bulging.
Yeah. Another thing I want to contest too about the sling is that I'm not gonna lie, I'm more of a huskier guy. I'm a bigger guy. And so I feel like the sling doesn't provide enough slack to like comfortably fit around my torso. And I'm a huskier guy and I work out too, so like there's a lot more meat to me. So it's not I feel like it's kind of tight. I don't like it.
I have to concur. All right, does anybody else have another hot take for this or not?
Not for this, no.
No,
Okay.
but I wanted to say something, Chris. That brand, I thought I took a business card when I was at NATA. I thought I took a business card for that brand, but I can't find it.
The one that Jamie has?
Yes, but there was a bunch of them. Like they are so cool. I looked in so many. There's so many different sizes and stuff. It's so cool.
Yeah, I'll have to.
What's the brand called?
Hold on, I'll have to try. I'll find it, Trevor. Just give
I
me.
tried to find the business card and I couldn't find it.
Give me a little bit and I'll find it.
All right, just link it then.
All right, so for the position statement we're going to talk about today, again, this comes from the National Athletic Trainers Association. These are the position statements they come out with. Usually they get updated, most of them are updated pretty fairly. And today we're going to be talking about preventing, detecting, and managing disordered eating in athletes. So this goes along with our main topic for mental health. Eating disorders are a type of mental health disorder that can be experienced by many of our athletes, especially in some specific sports. I know. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is what sports we see eating disorders most commonly in. And one that I'll start out with, because I like to work with it a lot, is wrestling.
Yes,
so
sir.
Wrestling is probably one of the biggest ones for maintaining weight. We have specific instruments that we use to make sure that they're hydrated enough, and we have to go through dieting exercises and stuff like that to make sure that they're taking in the right nutrients and carbohydrates and fats and proteins to be able to sustain, one, life, but two, wrestling at a high school or college level that we're working at. So, and they also have to figure in, and this goes into the other sports that I was thinking about when I wrote this, is their figure. They don't want to be that, that chubby guy on the wrestling mat that everybody says,
yep,
you're in a skin tight singlet and you don't want to look like that. So that moves us into a couple other ones that, a couple other sports that are very specific to, tight fitting clothing, or the performance is based on how you look. So does anybody else know any other ones?
Well, obviously like gymnastics,
Yep.
or acro and tumbling, things like that. Girls obviously want to look fit, but also lean, but also be strong enough for their sport. And we all know that gymnasts like usually have those like bigger muscles, like wider, frames. And some girls don't want to look like that, but to perform at that level, they have to. So they kind of are in like a juggle of like what they should be looking like. And that could be, detrimental to like how they eat, or just how like much they exercise, and maybe they won't perform that well in their sport, and they kind of just like don't know what to do.
I had one other one in mind. Does anybody know what it is? Specifically, it has to do with tight fitting uniforms or clothing.
I was gonna say performance arts is like when you see like
a
lot in performance arts, ballet, dancing.
Yeah, I didn't think of that one.
Shit like that. You're gonna see it a lot.
I was thinking more swimming.
Jeez, I didn't even think of that
that-
either.
So
Yeah.
one it's the the aerodynamics of it, but two, it's again like wrestling. It's the tight fitting swimsuit that provides you the most aerodynamic, the fastest way to swim, and people are conscious about what they take into their bodies. So
True. That is very true.
going into more of the actual eating disorder part of it, how do we prevent eating disorders from happening, especially in these specific sports that have a lot to do with weight management or idealistic looks or something like that?
I mean, that's like, I don't, I just feel personally for me, like it's kind of like that's like a hard area to encompass, because like, especially I know, especially from hearing like wrestlers, like they'll like, the wrestlers that are like hardcore, like that, do this and they absolutely love it, will go to the extent of everything to make sure they make weight. And like, I feel like just like being comes to, like, I know it's harder in high school, but I feel like in college, like we have like nutritionists at hand and that do design their programs for this. So like I feel like in college is a little more like controlled, I could say, I guess. But I just feel like in high school it's a lot harder, and like I just feel like you have to have like that connection with them, especially like, be able to talk to their parents too, like to let them know like, hey, like just like work out a plan with them to kind of figure out the best way for them to make sure they're getting the right nutrition and everything.
I'm gonna go right back to just education. I think we should educate kids on proper hydration, proper nutrition, and I feel like another big thing of like preventing an eating disorder, because it doesn't have to be just like making weight or whatever. It could just be like body dysmorphia. Like they could be literally going through, as I mentioned earlier, social media, just looking on there and being like, wow, this athlete looks like this. Why can't I look like that? Or why can't I like perform this way? Maybe it's because I have to eat more. So I'm going to like eat more and gain more muscle, or I have to be skinnier to look better in my uniform, whatever it is. I think it's just education and being like the patient's advocate to just let them know that like their body is fine, and that we can help them get where they want to be in a very healthy manner, instead of just taking upon themselves to just not eat, or maybe I know some eating disorders like binging and then throwing it up, and that's just not healthy, and we have to tell them that, make sure they know that by educating them.
So a really important point of especially our jobs is, because we see these athletes every day and we work with them every day, how do we notice these eating disorders, if they're currently happening, if they've happened in the past and they've kind of gotten a hold of it? But how do we notice these things when they're happening, and what do we take care to how do we take care of these athletes that are having these eating disorders?
So obviously it's easier to detect eating disorders in with athletes like wrestlers, or the athletes that we have to weigh and make sure that they're like, hitting the right benchmarks for their weight. Um, but obviously just like maybe mood changes, noticing that they look a little like more skinnier than normal or heavier than normal, or maybe honestly their skin color can also be a big detecting point,
Mm-hmm.
because they can look more flushed if they're not drinking the right like amount of water or getting the right nutrients that they have. Cramping a lot, not eating as much, like how my situation that I told before with the soccer athlete, like having just random cramping out of nowhere, that can show that they're not getting the proper nutrition.
And
Yeah.
mood swings as well are a big part of it.
Yeah, and I feel like at top of that too is like the lack of energy, because like these kids that aren't getting enough energy, like their body's not fueling itself, so like they're obviously gonna be very distraught and like could become dizzy or just nauseated because they don't have food in their system, and they're just drinking water thinking it'll be enough. But like when you're actually doing physical energy, your body's not using anything for fuel, because especially when it comes to wrestling, like especially the younger lower weights, like you're mostly just like skin and bone, and like you obviously have muscle and stuff, but like you don't really have that much fat for your body to eat and use as energy when you're not eating. So like they're gonna become a lot more tired and not, you could, for like, if it's severe enough, you could just notice right off the bat, like, that they're not in their normal state, especially when you're working with them so often, you know how they are.
Yeah, and like monitoring a practice, you could see their energy level. You could see if they're actually pushing themselves how they normally would. And maybe it's like a time frame of just like randomly they just like not, being as aggressive as a player, or if that's like how they usually are, like you might question like what's going on.
And definitely, I feel like a thing too is like, like even speaking with the coach, if they notice anything, 'cause, like, they see these guys or girls every day, through hours of practice, and like training and weightlifting, like, they could notice a difference on their athletes too if they notice anything that is serious enough. I feel like, having that talk with the coach and making them understand, like, hey, if you see any of these kind of issues or anything, please let me know so we could, resolve the issue or something like that. So like they have to be more involved too. I feel like the coaches have to be educated and everything with what's going on so they could also help their athletes in that way too.
Another thing is obviously some patients that or athletes that have eating disorders will probably get sick too, a lot more than your normal athletes. So they could be throwing up a lot more at practice, maybe when they're doing like exertional exercises. Um, and as Chris said, like being more nauseous when doing exercise because they don't have that energy in them to perform what they're supposed to be expected of. I think those are really big key factors. And thankfully, my situation wasn't an eating disorder, but it surely could have turned into one if this kid wasn't getting the like proper nutrition as he used to. And he that's another thing we did, like I don't know if you guys remember, but at the very end of the spring semester we did like a patient reported outcome project.
Yeah.
I did mine on like home life, and it was based off this athlete that I'm talking about. And I did a survey on like basically are they getting the proper nutrition at home and are they eating at school, because this kid wasn't even eating at school because he didn't have the money to eat or the food to pack for lunch. So that's another thing you got to watch out for.
So last thing before we get to the closing, just the management of eating disorders. How, if somebody currently has an eating disorder, what can we do to help them notice that they have an eating disorder and try and either get them help with a professional dietitian or something like that, or handle it in house by just just noticing and accepting that you have an eating disorder is a big part of any type of mental health disorder. So how would we handle that in house per se? Because I know we can just refer them out to a dietitian or anything like that, but how would we do it ourselves?
I guess it kind of depends on like the kind of situation you're in, like whether it's high school or college. Because obviously, I feel like those would be two different things. Because usually colleges do have in-house dietitians working with all the sports teams, but like just in general speaking, having a group of peers or like your coaches and like everybody included into the situation, just kind of have like a group to be talking to and everything like that. Like I guess it's kind of harder in high school because you don't always have the dietitian, but just keeping in house, like kind of like speak with the parents, like let them know what you feel is going on, and like having a good rapport with the parents too, so they could kind of help you fill in the blanks of what you're missing out, so so you can make sure that you keep your athlete safe and healthy when you're with them.
I'm gonna say something quick, but I want to get Trevor in here because I feel like I keep talking a lot. But I know if the athlete is already like it's like confirmed that they are diagnosed. Obviously establishing like a physician that they can go to and formulate like a treatment plan for them. Um, and this is probably going to be more outpatient than it would be in-house. And then just basically like determine the level of the athlete's participation. Maybe they need a little while to just like rest and like get the proper nutrition before they maybe injure themselves because of lack of nutrition. um and then just like monitor them by using just screenings and just talking to them and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. Also, I'm sure that there's like some type of like way of making sure that they are getting the nutrition, whether it be like a urine test or some type of blood test to make sure that they have the proper like nutrients in them. Maybe that can be done as well.
Trevor, do you want to hit on anything?
Yeah. So I guess like the topic of conversation is handling it in-house. To handle it in-house, I mean, obviously there's a variety of situations and every situation is different. So it all kind of depends on what your resources are with handling it in-house. I mean, if you feel confident enough to put it on your shoulders, you better go in there with your best foot forward if you're handling it in-house. So we are equipped to, you know, deal with like preliminary stuff when it comes to that, but we're really we're not registered dietitians, we're not psychological experts, we're not, it really kind of is our job to refer out. So if you're handling it in-house, definitely offer friendly advice, but I don't think it's in our scope of practice, obviously, to give them any medical advice like that. I mean, obviously you can tell them, hey, you need to eat, that's obviously a part of it, but to create a meal plan for them or something like that is not us. But let's say you're at a high school, obviously you can get together with your guidance counselor, you can get together with, maybe the school has a school psychiatrist, school psychologist, somebody that's trained to deal with that stuff. Obviously you can consult them about it as well if you plan on handling it in-house. But if you're going to go about it in-house, you definitely got to do it right, because a lot can go wrong with those situations.
Agreed.
Dude, that thing is so adorable.
I know. I keep looking at it.
For the listeners, that's Jake's got a kitten on his lap.
She's biting. She's in her teething stage. All right. Thanks everybody for listening to our third episode of the Position Statement podcast. We're on YouTube and Spotify. Make sure you're going onto our Instagram page, liking our pictures, and follow us on there. Position Statement podcast, all lowercase and no spaces. And then on our Discord, put in some ideas for the next podcast, either if it's a main topic you want to hear us talk about, or the game, or if you want to go research your own position statement from the NATA website, please do so. Put it in there, and we'll be sure to include it in the next episode. Does anybody have anything else for the good of the order today?
So I just want to say to anybody that's struggling with any mental health disorder, there are so many resources, there are so many hotlines. Please look them up. Do not feel stigmatized. We are in a world where everybody looks at things negatively, and you might feel alone. But there are so many places that you can get help, and people that will listen to you. If they're not going to listen to you, they are not your friend. They are not going to help you. Keep positive people in your life. I know, Jake, you have the hotline up.
Yep. So the suicide hotline just changed. It was a really, really long number that you had to dial out the whole number, but it's now a simple 988. So if you're dealing with suicide or any type of life crisis that you need to talk to somebody about, be sure to give the suicide hotline a call. 988. They're available 24 hours a day. Give them a call if you're dealing with something that you can't, if you need help right away. So
absolutely,
you can
man.
call or you can text 988.
Yeah, 3 simple numbers, 988. That's it. Dial, text, whatever you need.
And don't be afraid to, go out your comfort zone and talk to people. Don't keep it all to yourself. Don't be afraid. Everybody's there to listen. Your family loves you and everything like that. So don't be afraid to even talk to them. I know it's going to be hard at first, than it was for a lot of us, but don't be afraid to go out there and find your own ways to kind of cope with this too. Like you don't want to just stay inside and just keep your mind going. You want to think about different things and venture out, try to do something different every week. Just kind of get your mind off it and just kind of get better.
Absolutely. Yeah, you only have one life and you'll never get it back. So it is very important to be positive, try to find things that you're passionate about. I know it could be hard sometimes, and sometimes you feel like you're at a dead end and the world is falling in on you, but I promise it, you can overcome what you're dealing with. It is so possible. You just have to keep persevering, have patience, and surround yourself with things that make you happy.
So that's the end of the podcast. Everybody have a great week. We're all starting our internships either next week or the following week. So good luck to everybody on that. And we'll talk to everybody soon.
We love you.
We love you.